Shalom, I'm Rabbi Michael Panitz. I'm the Rabbi of Temple Israel of Norfolk, Virginia, speaking to you from the pulpit of our synagogue. At this time, I'd like to address the topic, Remember This Day. A quote from the Bible, Remember this day. To be human is to have the capacity to remember. Our evolved brains lift us from the unidimensional life in the eternal now. But we do not remember everything. For every item we remember, there are many that we forget. The brain could not function without that selective pruning. And so, to be human is to remember selectively amidst the forgetting. It therefore becomes imperative to find ways to remember what we truly need to remember. The Bible is about the long and still incomplete project that God has undertaken to raise humanity to a level of fulfilling the ethical potential which our Creator has implanted within us. Telling the story of the Israelite people, the Bible places the saga of the Exodus at the very core of the national memory we are obliged to remember. Exodus chapter 13, verse 3, Remember this day on which you went free from Egypt, the house of bondage, how the Lord freed you from it with a mighty hand. Why is the Exodus, among all the events recording the interaction of God and our people, the one right at the core of our mandated memory? Because our very identity is bound up with it. We are defined not only by our DNA, and not completely by it either, because people from all families can and do join the family of the Jewish people. There are spiritual as well as biological children of Abraham and Sarah, and they are all brothers and sisters in a religious sense. Our identity is at the intersection of family, shared experience, and the inspired meditation on that history. This complex feedback loop produces distinctive values to live by and actions to concretize those values. We call those values and actions Judaism. The Exodus is a foundational memory because we would not have emerged as a nation without it. But its significance lies in the posture of living that it enjoins. We are meant to be liberators. We are meant to challenge the shackling of humanity. Rousseau wrote, "Man is free, but everywhere he is in chains." Our identity is bound up with not complacently accepting that fact. There is more in the Jewish list of mandated memory. In this week's Torah portion, we are commanded to remember that we were enslaved in Egypt and that God rescued us from that fate. Next week's portion contains the memory of an attack that the people Amalek waged upon us, unprovoked, as we left Egypt. And we are commanded to remember that episode as well. Oppression and deliverance, vulnerability and self-defense are part of the set of memories that keep us true to our core values. This week, we observe the 80th anniversary of the liberation of the largest Nazi death camp, Auschwitz-Birkenau. The horrors of Pharaoh, of Amalek, and of later oppressors of the Jewish people are overshadowed by the scope and the systematic enlistment of an entire modern society in the industrial-scale genocide of our Jewish people. Had Hitler not been defeated militarily, he would have succeeded. If it is a commandment to remember our oppression in Egypt, it is certainly a commandment to keep the memory of the Nazi genocide alive. Today there are those who cruelly abuse the memory of the Jewish victims of the Holocaust by calling upon their country or upon Germany to, quote, get past it. There are others who seek to invert the Holocaust, blaming the Jewish people then and especially now for the ongoing attack on the State of Israel, its citizens, and the Jewish people worldwide. At this inflection point in history, with the elderly few living survivors of Auschwitz having made a pilgrimage of sorrow for perhaps the last time, the virulence of anti-Semitism is increasing. We need to amplify the voices of the Jewish victims. We need to prevent their sacrifice from becoming meaningless by fighting back against the pernicious attempt to normalize the extremes of anti-Jewish rhetoric and criminal action. A world where people shrug when a synagogue in Australia is vandalized is a world on its way back to Kristallnacht. A world where the Hamas mass murder, kidnapping, rape, and torture of October 7th, 2023 ceases to be a source of universal revulsion. Much worse, where it is hailed as so-called resistance. That is a world where the intentional forgetting of the Holocaust is actively paving the path for future mass murder. In the Bible narrative, the Jewish people beat back the threat from Amalek, but do not eliminate it. It remains a challenge from generation to generation. More decisive, however, is the exodus from Egypt. It set in motion an advance in human liberty, as well as the freedom of our own nation, that is still at work in many places in the contemporary world. The Exodus is the deep root of the liberty tree in every country where would-be dictators are restrained by constitutional laws. The Exodus is at the heart of functioning democracies, even messy ones. But for the Exodus to continue to be the engine of liberation, we need to remember the slavery from which it delivered us, to remember it, and to mobilize our energies to safeguard freedom so hard won. May the message of the Exodus continue to inspire us. With God's help, may we continue to protect the achievement of the Exodus. Torah teaches us to oppose tyranny. Let us learn well and have the courage to live out its lessons. Amen.